Welcome to this time-lapse video. This painting was done from a photo of a model named Zanetta that I got off of Sketchy. I did a little bit of color correction in Photoshop first because I found the colors to be a little bit light and pale. I first adjusted the levels, which you can see in her face. Once you make the colors a little bit darker, it brings out some of the pinks in her cheeks in the violet of the light and some reds, and some interesting contrast between the background and her jean jacket. Those two different blues, more of a greenish blue and more of a violet blue of her jacket. I felt like the colors needed to be pushed a little bit further, so I added some saturation to the color, and you can see some beautiful reds coming into her nose and into her cheeks, a little more reds and violets in her lips. That's about where I wanted the photo. Then onto the painting. This painting I struggled with quite a bit. I was off to a good start, but there was some issues with the drawing. I don't like to do a preliminary sketch first. I like to go right into the painting. The only measuring that I really do is measure some of the major landmarks and where they go onto the panel from the initial photo. I have the photo sized in proportion to the size that I'm painting, so I can measure the landmarks from the top, bottom, and side edges of the painting. But what I found happening as I painted, I was losing the placement of some of the features. The eyes I had painted too high. You can see when you compare to the side-by-side photo how much higher the eyes are than the actual photo. And at some point in the painting you'll see that I lowered the eyes, but actually ended up making them too low. After stopping and coming into the second session of the painting, I raised the eyes again. They were still a little bit on the low side. Halfway through in the video production, I almost abandoned it altogether because after reviewing the time lapse, the viewers weren't going to get a lot out of this because I didn't take a straight path to the finished painting. It took so many tries and redraws to be able to get there. Moving the eyes around, moving parts around. I usually have some of that in a painting, but not as much in this painting. But what I decided, that is an important part of a process to demonstrate that not every painting goes perfectly the way you want. What was important to show here, a little bit of the struggle in that process. In a previous video, I talked about how I wanted to take a painting that at several points would consider a finished painting and keep on painting into it. And I think this, in a way, ended up being that video. I wasn't ever completely satisfied with the painting, but I had to come in so many more times till I got to the finished painting that I wanted. The time lapse, I didn't actually film to the finish of the process. I filmed until really the first phase where I could have considered it a finished painting, and I did post it as a work in progress. But I felt like I needed to have the space and the time to get it to where I needed to get it without the video being filmed, and just really taking my time, getting up a lot and standing back and looking at the work. Usually when I film the time lapse, I'm just sitting in my chair working continuously until the painting is done. That doesn't work with every painting. Not every painting goes the way you planned. Even though I knew what I wanted it to look like in the end, I had difficulty getting there. It took quite a few tries before I did, and I think it's important, whatever your skill level, you're going to come to paintings you either have to decide to stop painting on and go to another painting and really chalk it up as a loss or a learning experience, or really fight through until you get to the finish that you want. It's not always possible with every painting, but sometimes it's worth the time and try to save some of that time that you invested in the painting to get something out of it. In this case, I did struggle through, and what it really took in the end was get the painting to a certain place where I stepped back and I did a lot of comparison with the photo to get the landmarks exactly where they needed to be, then made very incremental changes till I got very close to where I wanted, and then some finishing strokes in the end. And that's what it took, was just being very careful and settling down and putting things in the right color, the right value, the right location, the right brushstroke shape, and the right texture. Just very slowly getting there so that I didn't get off track. Let's take a look at the journey this painting took along the way. After the first session, I was pleased with the progress, and it was about where I'd like a painting to be to finish it up in a second session. But after the second session, it lacked the likeness to the model and looked a little bit cartoony. so I decided to continue to work into a third session. After the third session, I thought that there was an improvement, but there still was problems with the underlying drawing and still lacked some of the likeness. So I decided to continue to work into a fourth session. Well, the fourth session didn't go so well, and the painting really did suffer from being overworked and still had the eyes too high. In the fifth session, I painted out the eyes all together so that I had a fresh base to work from, and then became very cautious of where the eyes were painted to make sure that they were in the right place, and continued on with very careful brush strokes to get the finish that I wanted. It was a tough journey, but I did get there in the end. Hopefully this will be an encouragement for those who struggle to get their paintings to look the way they want. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you.